ठीक है. Just keep remember कि that particular कि the asynchronous JavaScript is very very important for especially for your interview. ठीक है. So मतलब whenever you will be going for interviews in particular JavaScript application, like JavaScript interview, just revise asynchronous JS, revise these callbacks, promises, and async await. Okay, so let's start today's lecture. And तो कल हमने डिस्कस करा था. ठीक है. And now today we are actually going to look कि भाई how like where like where I am going to use or where we are going to use actually in all these things in our code, right? अभी तो हमने सिर्फ देखा था कि अच्छा ये क्या होता है, async await क्या होता है, what are these promises, what are these callbacks, but now we are going to look how we are actually going to use them. But before that, let's understand what is an API or the web API I said, or the like yesterday, like Naveen has raised the question ki imagine if you are having a weather API. So what is this API? Let's talk about this particular thing. Okay, so an API and application programming. And this is a very good example I find on internet, so I like pasted it here. An application programming interface allows two programs to communicate. ठीक है. Basic application, an application programming interface that allows two programs to communicate. On the other hand, web APIs sit between an application and a web server, facilitate the transfer of data. The main aim of an API is to transfer the data from the client to the server. Now we understood कि भैया something, there is a JSON that there is something known as the JSON, which is in object form that contains some key value pair. ठीक है. It contains some key value pair, and we we represent our data in this particular JSON, and this particular JSON then we transfer this to particular our client side or the server side. We understood this. ठीक है. When I was teaching you about the JSON, कि what are JSON, what are JSON? In simple terms, JSON are the just the way you represent your data in key value pair. JSON is that, and through JSON we are actually going to transfer our data from, like actually going to represent our data from our backend to the client. Okay, but okay, we understood the JSON, but how we are going to do that, how we are going to pass this particular data to the client, or from client to the backend, or to some other friends, or like whomsoever is asking that particular thing data. Okay, how we are going to do that? We use something known as the APIs. Okay, APIs, application programming interface. Imagine this: there is client, there is client, and there is, on the other hand, there is a server. Okay, this particular client, needs the data from the server. Server means like any backend, or let's you can assume here anything. Okay, but this particular client wants the data from the server. Okay, yeah. So this particular client wants the data from the server. So we know कि भैया we represent data, whatever the data we are getting in the JSON format, like in this particular key value format. But how we are going to do that? How we are getting that? We are getting that through APIs. API. Imagine this: there is a box, there is an empty box. You put that particular JSON data into that particular empty box, and you transfer that empty box to the client. Okay. Now that particular box is known as the API. What I will do from the server, I will put data into that particular box. I will transfer it through the protocols. What protocols we use in what protocols we use on internet? HTTPS. I will transfer data in HTTPS, and from the client side, I will take out data from that particular box. Okay, this is how we are going to use the APIs. Let's come back to our PPT, and let's understand what is the example we are showing here. So this is the client, this is a bee house, and this is the flower. Okay, and this flower has a nectar. Nectar means the particular food, what bees are like, what they eat is nectar. What they do is client, hey, we need more nectar, in this case data, to make our honey, to make our app. Okay, what are the app we are building? So basically the data we are getting from these any particular server or from somewhere else, we are going to use that data into a particular application. Okay, so these bees are working as the APIs. Okay, so what they say कि भैया we need nectar, in terms like data, how we are going to like how they are going to use the HTTP particular protocol, and like they will like they will go to the particular server, so they are making a request, so a valid request call to the server. This is the server, okay, this is the flower from there, from where they will the uh, squeeze the nectar, okay. Now this particular bee will take out the nectar, return back, okay, and here the client will get the nectar. So how this is working here, client is the particular application we are building, server from where the we are getting the data, and in what form we are getting the like in what form we are getting the data, in JSON format. JSON format will help us to represent our data in the key value pairs, and whom, like with the help of like what is helping to bring all those things, like that data. These particular bees are particularly helping us to create our particular application. So in this type of example, these bees are known as the what APIs. ठीक है, that particular box. ठीक है, so how it works, API call is initiated by the client application via HTTP request. Our worker B acts as an API going to a flower, which is known as the server, to collect nectar, which is known as the data. The API transfers the request data back to the request application, usually in the JSON format. Okay, so this is the this is like a just a an easy simple English language how you can understand the APIs. Okay, now this is the more like in the tech language, what we can say is web app in the browser request mari. Okay, this is the API that we are, with the helping of this thing, we are like transferring our data, and from the web servers we are using this API. Web servers will put data into this particular API. This API will go in the internet or the web browser, and then they will fetch data or take out data from this particular box. Okay, understood what is API? Just give me a yes. Application program interface that will allow us to communicate between client and server so that we can transfer our data. Any doubts you can ask, so that or no, if we can move forward. Is request always accepted? Yeah, we will look into that. No, the answer is always accepted. No, not necessary. Imagine this particular server is, see, when we will learn about the when we will learn in the backend now, so we will create our own APIs. Okay, the API particular thing, the box particular thing I'm talking about, we will create those own box, and we will do something ki bhaiya, whatever the particular box is asking the data to be to put in, we don't want that. So there are particular authentication, we can say in simple terms, that we will use in a particular APIs. Or in simple terms, the question you are asking, this request is always accepted? No, the answer is no, because on server side, anyone can use their authentication. Ki whether the particular client, whomsoever is asking the data, that particular client is like a, whether they are like correct or not, whether they are not fraud or they are not corrupt. So like answer is no. Okay, so we are going to learn all those things. So don't worry. But we are just here doing a journal form. Ki bhaiya how we are going to transfer data. Doubts? Any? Okay. Let's move forward. And so yeah, this is the thing. Now this is the thing. Now let's come back to our particular thing. Let me remove this. ठीक है. And this also, let me open console. ठीक है. Now we are going to look कि भाई how APIs actually works. So what is this? This particular HTTPS is a API. ठीक है. If I go on do this. This is a particular API. Now this particular API consists some data, and I want the data to fetch. Okay, I want this particular API consists some data, and I want this particular data to be fetched from this particular API. Imagine this is a box. This is a box where the data is stored. So like this API will give you a cat fact. Okay, this is a API that will give you a cat fact. Okay, so this particular thing has data in it in the JSON form, and now we are going to now like on the client side, on the like browser side, uh, we are actually going to fetch data from this particular API, which means we are actually going to like extract the data from the box. So how we are going to do that? Okay, let's see. So we use something known as the fetch keyword. Okay, this is a reserved keyword, and this is a browser functionality. Just like we have set timeout, just like we have prompt, in the same manner we have something as the fetch. What I will do here, in this particular curly braces, I will paste the particular API. Okay, this particular fetch will fetch data from this particular API. Okay, this is for the fetching the data from the particular API. Now how can I see the API? Let me show you. Now, always remember, is these type of particular things on internet known as the APIs will not give you will not give you result as soon as you will call them. Okay, like as soon as I will call them, this particular API will not eventually give me result within a second. It may take seconds to give me result. For that thing, we are going to use async await that we learned yesterday. Why we are using async await? We want for this particular function that we wrote yesterday. Why we wrote await uh, why we wrote await here? Because we want this particular function to return something till that function return. Let me wait on this particular line. Like JavaScript will not move forward, will not compile, or will not run all these commands after this. Why? Because we have used something await. Because why? We are getting something from this particular thing. It takes time to return. In the same way, this particular APIs takes time to give us data. Okay, whenever we will use the fetch, it will take some time to give us data. Okay, so how we are going to do that? Let me create a function here. Function get cat fact, and here I am getting the response. And I will paste this. Okay, now imagine, let's see what is the response coming. Okay, as soon as I save this, let me call this particular function. As soon as I will call this function, this particular go to this, it will see quite okay. I have to fetch data from this particular thing to let me, and I have to use, then I will store that data particular thing data to the response, and I'm showing that response. Whatever the response this particular API is giving. Okay, let's see what happens. Let me refresh this. What you are seeing here? You are seeing here कि भैया this returns a promise. Promise what? The same thing we have uh, learned yesterday. This particular API returned a promise, and this is in pending state. Can you tell me why? This is yesterday we also saw that why some like yesterday we also uh, saw something like this. Can you tell me why this is in pending state? Can anyone tell me? Let me show you the code again. I am responding the data output, data whatever the data that coming from this particular output. Why is it not giving me data? Why it is giving me pending in pending state? Think we have done it yesterday only. Yeah, you can open your mics. You can open your mics and can answer. No problem in that. Guess what is the particular thing? Why it is giving me pending here? Uh, I wrote
because you haven't made promise function, a function of promise.
right. So like नहीं, this means कि like we are not actually waiting for this particular thing to return, and like as you can say this. Okay, I will tell you. ठीक है. See, the confusion you are getting कि भैया आपने आपने ये नहीं बनाया ना. This is what you are saying, right? You have not made something like return new promise, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, okay. ठीक है, ठीक है. See, one thing to know, for all these API will always return a promise. ठीक है. Why did I show you here yesterday कि I have created a promise and then I am calling this promise? Because we were not using the API yesterday. By default, remember this, by default API returns a promise. ठीक है. So we don't have to create something like this. ठीक है. These API returns a promise by default. Yesterday, why we were making promises? Because we were not working with the APIs. But always remember, APIs, whatever the APIs we see on the internet, whatever the APIs we will create, they always return a promise. ठीक है. Doubt solved, Devganshi?
Yes.
ठीक है. Now tell me कि भैया अब क्या होगा. अब ठीक है, वो तो मैं डाउट सॉल्व कर दिया. Now why it is getting the impending state? I have told you just now कि भैया वी आर नॉट वेटिंग, राइट? वी आर not waiting for this particular thing to return. That is why we are getting a promise pending here. Yesterday also, when Naveen asked me कि भैया what if we remove this particular await from this particular thing, then I said कि the main thing of this particular word here is is saying कि भैया wait for this particular function to return. ठीक है. Wait for this particular function to return me something, then only I will go to the next line. In the same way, we are not using any keyword here, we are not making it asynchronous. This is a synchronous JavaScript. We are using here. So what we have to do, we have to make this function asynchronous, and we have to use here await. Now this means कि भैया uh, कि we have to await for this particular task to return me something. When this particular promise will return me the any data, then only I will go to the next part. Understood? Understood this thing? Just right, yes. Okay. ठीक है. Now let's see what is happening here. As soon as I will refresh, this particular API is giving me the response, is giving me the type of JSON, and this JSON is consisting so many things: body use, headers, okay, tag, status. Whenever you are getting a response and whenever you are seeing something known as the status to 200, this means that a particular API that you are hitting has gave you a like has gave you a data. ठीक है. Has gave you a data. Whenever you are seeing something other than 200, like a 400, 500, this means कि भाई you this particular data is like that particular data have gave you some error. ठीक है. Understood? So okay means true. Whenever the okay is true, it means कि भैया that particular thing is executed. ठीक है. भैया पर now we are not getting the data. Like you said कि भैया this particular thing will give us the what will give us the cat fact, but we are not able to see any cat fact here. What are all these body, headers, status? Let me show that. Let me do. Let me see what happens here. Undefined. Okay. Let's. Have you remember कि what I told you कि everything कि protocols only understand what? Protocols only understand strings, byte stream. This is what I told you, right? So when I was teaching you the JSON, I told you something like na कि whenever we on the client side, whenever we are getting the response, I have to convert that response into JSON object back. ठीक है. This is why we are not able to see here the response. Now if I go back and if I do refresh here, effect response. Okay, this is a response. Is this response? No. Let me refresh this again. think it's not showing it here, but headers. ठीक है, response. ठीक है, let's understand it from here only. This particular, as I told you ना कि भैया whatever the thing we are transferring on the HTTPS only understands what, only understands the string. So what we have to do, whatever the data we are sending on the particular through the HTTPS protocol, we have to convert that JSON object into some stringify. So how do we do that? JSON dot stringify, ठीक है, and then we have to send this particular data to the HTTPS. Now on the client side, I have to convert this particular string to object, right? To object. Why? Because I told you कि भैया we are not going to use string. ठीक है? We are going to use eventually object in our particular client. So what we have to do? We have to convert this response to the JSON object. This particular response is in string now. ठीक है? Let's see how we can convert this. If I do const cat fact, and I will write here what? I will write here the response dot JSON. Okay, this is what, this is how you will convert this particular thing to an object. Okay, as simple as that. Now, if I go back and if I refresh this, if I refresh this, no, bhaiya, again this is saying promise pending. Why? Why is that? Why is that? भैया यहाँ पे तो आपने यूज कर लिया wait, but now this is a way, but this is again giving me a wait, like when I do the cat fact, because again the process of converting string to the JSON will take some time. ठीक है, it will not convert that within seconds. ठीक है, maybe it will take some time. We don't know how much time it will take, but it is saying कि भैया it is taking some time and you are not using await keyword here. So what I have to use? I have to use await. Now what we are seeing here कि भैया कि भैया कि this particular, we have to first wait for this particular thing to give me something. Okay, whatever thing it gave me, I stored it in the response. Now I have to convert that particular JSON, that particular string to JSON, but like this phenomena will also take some time. So this is how we will convert that particular string to JSON. But now again we have to wait for this particular thing to convert that to make that phenomena, right? So again we are using the await here. Now if I do save and if I go back to the console, what you will see? You will see a data is coming, right? And this data is coming. Like if I show you the network again, now you can see here response. If I do refresh, why it is not giving me any data? It should give me data, right? Fact. Okay, let's see it from here. I don't know why it is not giving any response. Okay, but let's see. Here data is coming. Okay, here the data is coming. This is how. Now you can show it. You can see it. This is a very big prompt. Okay, imagine this is what we are getting. This is we are getting a something like this: a fact object, a particular object, and is something known as the fact, and there is some fact, and then there is the length of that particular fact कि भाई हाँ वो कितना लंबा है. This is the object or the JSON. What we can see, what we can get is getting from the front end, from the back end of whatever the thing, this particular API is getting the data. Any doubts you can ask? So what is, you can open your mouth and you can also ask doubts, no problem in that. So again I am repeating it. This particular fetch, the fetch keyword is used to fetch the particular data from this particular API. Okay. Now this will take some time to give us data. That is why we are using the await keyword. But again, as we know, कि भैया whatever the things come from come from the HTTPS protocol, they are in the string format. So we have to convert that particular string format into JSON back. Okay? So what we are seeing here, we have to convert that particular string to a JSON. Now we again know this, this particular thing will take some time. So we have to again use the await. We have to again use the await. And now we can get the data. Okay? So now here I'm getting the data. Now how can you how can you, if I do cat fact dot fact, so you will see the fact coming. Because why? We with the help of the dots, what we can do is, we can use the particular key, like as you know na, key this particular object has the fact, and there is something, it has the value, and then there is the key, and that particular key has some value. So now what if we want that particular fact only, so we can using dot fact. Okay, clear? This particular thing is clear. Just write yes.
We can use JSON.parse to convert the data back into
Yeah, ठीक है.
object format.
Let's use that, because the thing, yeah, I also tried it. But what happened is that the particular data you are giving from the response, as you see now, we are not here actually. See, let me show it again. What I will do here, the particular response I am getting is containing so many things. Okay, we do not know from this particular dot. Let's see, it is a readable stream, as you can see. But yeah, readable stream, this is what I was talking about. It is in the it is in the string format. Let's make this particular, I even don't know, but the thing I will tell you why we use the particular JSON instead of the JSON dot parse. Let's use this particular thing. Object ठीक है, JSON parse is not defined, anonymous. ठीक है. Yeah. I will tell you why. See, let me remove 40 from here. See, the particular, see, this is JSON is again a browser method. Okay, this is what browsers provide us. So the functionality that just like is the same for the fetch. What this says is कि भैया the particular response I am getting, we don't know कि like it will give us so many response, like in body. It is a very complex object, as you can see. This particular object has some body use, headers in this. Okay, okay, true. We don't know in what part of that particular thing the body is there. Okay, actually the body is in the body stream only, but that body stream also is logged, and that particular body that this particular thing also has some body keywords in it. So there is a reserved keyword dot json that will convert, and that will take it out, that particular, that the first thing it will do, convert, that we all know. But then bhaiya ki, if we can convert the object from the json parts, why we are not using it? Second thing is that it knows ki from where I have to fetch that particular data that you are asking. Okay, that is why we are using the .json method. Imagine this particular response is getting only an object, is getting only an object in something like the fact and then the length. Okay, then I can just again make it a object. I can again use the json dot parse, and I can make it an object. But why we are not doing here? Why we have why we have a defined method name as the json, because we don't know the data, where data is, and this particular thing only knows कि भाई from where I have to take out that particular data, and I have to convert that particular data back to object. Okay, this is why this is a reserved keyword. Understood? You can ask, if you have doubts, you can ask. पक्का पक्का, लेट्स हो गया है ना क्लियर? Because doubt is purely valid. Uh, I also searched it on Google. Why do not JSON dot parse on getting the API. Why do we start JSON? Let me see what it will give me. I have JSON array making server. ठीक है. Response you have received from the server is a string, which is not very useful making a loop. ठीक है. This is what I was talking about. The response you have received from the server will be a string. But ठीक है, ये तो बताएगा. तो evil string नहीं. See, this is what I'm talking about. If you are getting a directly a object from the response, then you can use json.parse, okay, as shown in this particular image only. But like as I told you कि भाई why we are using it, so I think that is the only answer. That is the only answer. Difference between json.parse and json.parse. According to some articles on internet, two methods can work in similar manner and one can be used in place of other, but this is not case when I am trying. For example, ठीक है, this is the answer you are misunderstanding what are these methods are doing. This will decodes the buffer in the, ठीक है, this is a very good answer. Just look at this. This will decode the buffer in the rest as a JavaScript object. This means the resulting data is not text. If you, whatever the reason what you have related as a string, you will need to call and await for, ठीक है, uh, you can let it do the stuff in the background without blocking. Whereas ठीक है, the particular thing I was telling you ना कि this is saying कि json.parse is blocking. Why? The same reason is this. Whereas json.parse is blocking. This means the particular thing is saying कि भैया you can't use json.parse. Why? Because the data you are trying to get is not actually here. That is why we have to use the await listen.json. Okay, so as you can clearly get the answer from this will decode the buffer. What buffer? The buffer we just saw, the stream buffer. In the rest is an object, JavaScript object. Understood? ठीक है. ठीक है. I also knew, I also did not know this particular thing. ठीक है, I also like in front of you searched it. So this is how यार actually works. ठीक है, learning and things like searching your answers on the internet. So APIs are done, and then we have also done this. कि भैया we are getting the response on this particular JSON. Let me. Okay, now we're getting the response. Okay, and to get the particular response from this, what we can use is, if I do the length, length, then I will get the length. Why length? Because this particular object was having a length key. Okay, now Akshat, you are telling me this is how we are going to communicate with the backends. Yes, APIs will only help us to communicate with the backends. A server you will create these types of APIs, and you will give this particular API to your front end team. Then on the front end side, the particular team or the particular person known as the front end developer will take out the data from this particular thing and will show it on their particular screen. So this is what we are. This is known as the data fetching, that you can say in simple terms. And this is what is the role of a front end developer. Okay, what are the APIs he is getting from the backend? So we will know how to create this big APIs. We will create our own APIs. Now, let me tell you, key, if you go on Google and if you write the rapid API, what you will see here is a particular website that will give you a lot of APIs. That will give you a lot of API. Instagram API. Bhaiya, what does that mean? Fresh LinkedIn profile data, Twitter. Uh, what else can you get? Okay. Now these particular API, either they are being created by the platform or they are being created by the particular person. Okay. What these APIs are? We know कि भैया API has data in it. Okay. So we can use this particular APIs on a front end. Okay. On our front end, like this is the API. Okay. This is the API. If I will hit this particular API, I will get data. What? results I will get about example responses schema. ठीक है, object data count. ठीक है ना, the particular things it will give is this. ठीक है, let me show you an another any another API sports. So these are there are thousands of API that you can use and you can create websites from that. ठीक है, let me open the sports API. Let's say कि भैया what this data gives us. ठीक है, so this is the API, the sports particular API. If I will fetch data from this particular API, what this is not showing. ठीक है, authorizations, subscribe to test here नहीं है, subscribe to test, so they are not showing us the particular thing. Best API, football news aggregator. Like there are so many APIs. Okay, all these APIs, when I will hit them or I will try to fetch data from these, they will give me some APIs and they will give me some data, and through that data, I can use this particular data into my website to show some particular things. This is how these news work. Okay, this is how Google News work. If you go to the Google, if you go to the, or this is how weather works. So if I go to the Google weather, let me, where you are seeing all these things, how it is coming on the front end side. It is coming through the API. A Google is using a particular API, okay, and from the particular API Google is fetching data. This particular API will contain so many things कि भैया what is the weather, what is the location I have to get the weather of, what is the particular temperature that weather that contain. So how this is happening, this is happening through the API. Okay, like the IMDb API. If I click on this, it will show you the IMDb API. This particular is the IMDb API. What it will give us, it may give us the it may give us the like so many what so many movie data. ठीक है, movie data it will give me कि भैया this movie will release in this particular thing. So like this is how we are going to use the APIs in our particular thing. ठीक है, understood why APIs are very important for us? Every application that you see on internet, everything uses API. They communicate in APIs. Okay, that's how we transfer data from one client or from one program to another program using the APIs. Okay, now this particular API can have now what if like I what are these all those things, X API key, host key. ठीक है, what are all these things. ठीक है, method get, we will talk about them, don't worry. But what are these headers? ठीक है, so basically these APIs are not free. ठीक है, some APIs like the API I am using is free, anyone can hit them. Okay, but there are some kind of APIs that that charges you. Okay, that charges you कि भैया you are getting the data from this particular API, and uh, we will what we will do is we will you have to buy this particular key from our particular site. Okay, and then you can only get data from this particular API. ठीक है, and for that particular thing we will charge something from you. ठीक है, this is how actually things work. ठीक है, understood, just give me a yes. Okay, ठीक है, let's move on to the next part, which is the, यार एपीआई के बहुत ज़्यादा बात कर लिया. एपीआई इज लाइक अ वेरी वेरी मतलब you will, when you will start like this is the first class, but in the back end we will create so many APIs and we will work. That's how we are going to transfer data to the front end. That's how people are going to use our APIs. So you have to work that. Let me show you an example. It is 44. Go to my GitHub. There is one interesting project I made, which is known as the lead. Like you must have lead code. This is a project I made. ठीक है, what this says is this is like a fun project. ठीक है, like I 2 months ago I made this. So what this says is कि भैया you enter your lead code profile username, and I will give you the worth of your lead code profile कि भैया देखो मतलब what is your cost of your lead code profile in real world. ठीक है, so like what is the cost. ठीक है, what is the amount of your lead. So if I type my AKSH gen, if I click on submit, so ठीक है, You can see here your lead code stats. So it is giving my lead code stats, which means कि भैया uh, how many problems I have solved on lead code, how many medium problems I have solved on lead code, how many hard, what is my ranking, what is my acceptance rate. So what, how this is coming on, how this data is coming. I am using a lead code API. Okay, I am using a lead code API that says कि भैया you enter any username, like any username, like of maybe your username, and I will give you the data from for that particular profile. This is how I am using the lead code API to show my particular data. Okay, so like I can write here anything. Okay, I can write here any random name, Rahul. I don't know whether that person exists or not on the lead code profile as a username. But let's see. So it will fetch the data of that particular person. That particular person has solved only one profile, one question. It has ranking something like this. Okay, so this is how things work. This is how I'm doing this. This is like a real world example. You can see by how I'm using the APIs. Now, another part is a fun thing. Ki bhai, it says, ki, are you sure you want to generate the voice of your lead code profile based on your lead code profile? If I say yes, then it will give me some meme kind of thing. So like your estimate worth is like for 4,62,000, and it says something like this. Okay. So like just a fun concept. But this is what I am using the lead code API that will give me a lead code data. Okay. Understood? We can move forward. Okay. Now this is the particular concept I was the main concept of today's class is the APIs and how to fetch data. Now, this particular thing, we only talked about we only talked about कि भाई how to get this, how to get data from this particular API. But what about if I want to put this data, I want to put some data to this particular API, and I want to send this particular API to the any other my friend or any backend, okay, or any client. Yeah. So this is known as the methods. Okay, known as the methods. Post get something like this. Okay, so this is known as the HTTP request methods. Okay, get, post, put, delete are the four important methods. I will tell you when we will done when we will do the backend how you will do that. But imagine this by default, like the every API is having some method. This particular API is having a method get, which says कि whenever the particular API has using the get method, this only means कि भैया if I headers, what it will say, they see the request method is says here get. ठीक है, whatever that particular method that particular API is using, which means this means कि भैया we can only take out data from this particular API. ठीक है, imagine this particular API is using a request method known as the post. Then what we have to do is we cannot get data from this particular API. Now this particular API will have something to put in it. Like we will put data or we will store data in this particular API, and then we will send this particular API to the any other particular thing. Okay. So we have request method for that. Get is when we have to fetch data from the particular API. It will have a request method known as the get. Put, whenever the API is having a post, sorry, put nahi, sorry, post. Whenever the API is having a post method, it means that API can take data. Okay, can take data. In this similar manner, the get method request representative request using get should only retrieve data. Okay, whereas the post uh, submits entity to the specified resource. Okay, in the simple manner, put is to update, is to replaces all your current representations of the target, which means it will update. ठीक है, delete means कि भैया delete the specified data which are having in this particular API. ठीक है, there are so many APIs, but all these things these are the methods. ठीक है, so we are going to create APIs in our backend. We are going to create a API that will have a method of get, from where bhaiya ki people can only get data from it. We will create APIs in the backend that will have a post method, that will have a put method. So all these things we are going to create, don't worry about it. Okay. This is only a get API, so we can only fetch data. Okay. Now 10 minutes left. Let's do the fast. uh, like i I included both of these because they were so important in for the purpose of the interviews. Hoisting and closures, very very important for the purpose of the interviews. Just remember this: you are not going to use in your code, you are not going to use when you will be writing a JavaScript code, but they will be asked in your interviews for sure. Okay. Let's understand what is hoisting. Hoisting in JavaScript is a behavior in which a function or the variable can be used before declaration. Okay, as simple as that. Okay, let me kind this. Hoisting means कि भैया functions on in the JavaScript and the where declared variables are hoisted, which means imagine this function get get name and it return me it consoles.log अक्षर ठीक है. Now if I do the get name, I will of course get the result. Okay. If I go here, then of course I will get the akshat in the on the console. But what if I do it before it, before the function declaration? What if I do something like this? Will I get the result? Yes. What if I use this particular on the top of my on the top of my code? Will I get akshat? Yes, I will get akshat. Okay. Why? Because this particular that particular function. See, JavaScript how works? JavaScript will go to this line, then this line. It will see a function, then go to this line. But what we are doing here, where functions are hoisted in JavaScript, which means eventually you are writing here, but behind the scenes, it will take function and it will make them on the top of the JavaScript on like here, and then you can call it from anywhere else. Okay, you can call it from anywhere in the JavaScript. This is known as the hoisting. Let me show you. Hoisting in JavaScript is a behavior in which a function or the variable can be used before declaration. Variable hosting, only variable declared with var is hoisted, not less let and const. Okay, with only var. And function, simple function is hoisted, not function expression. Okay, as simple as that. This is the thing what we have like. कि भैया this function is hoisted on the top of the particular code. Okay. What if I do something like var a is equal to 20? Okay. And what if I do console.log a? Like at the result, let's see. No, we are not getting the result. Why is that? Bhaiya, you said ki var declared variables are hosted and the functions are hosted. So we are getting the function, but we are not getting the variable. Who said you are not getting the result? You are getting the result. You are getting undefined. If you have got the null here, this that means that particular thing is not contained anything, but you are getting undefined, which means the particular variable is declared, but till now he has not found it, like the particular compiler has not found that value of that particular variable. Okay, this is why we are getting the undefined, but in behind the scenes this is hoisted. This is known as the what variable are the hoisted. It's like you will get the clear understanding in when you will see here there is something known as the execution context. Okay, there is known as something known as the execution context. This will contain two things: a memory and a code. A code where we will write a code, and the memory where it will define all the memories of the particular thing, like a var a b. Okay, so declare a b some undefined. Now what happens is, as soon as you will write the code, what happens is, before initializing this particular code or before running this code, memory will take place. Execution context, as soon as you will declare a variable, memory will take place. Like this particular thing, it will say a is undefined. Okay, that is why, like in simple terms, after that you will run that. Okay, after that you will run that. But before running this particular code, memory will take place. Memory will be assigned. For that particular thing, to be assigned. That is why what we are doing here. Why we are getting undefined is before. Why? Because before running this, in the execution context, a memory is already defined. But we are getting object below it. We are not getting object on the top of it. Okay, the value of that thing. That is why it is saying as the undefined. Okay, understood? Code that is we write here. Okay, in simple language, the code we write here, and as soon as we write the code, a memory is created for those particular variables. Okay, before initializing that particular code or before running this particular code, a memory will be created. Now, as hoisting says us कि भैया you can get anything before declaration, but we are getting undefined. Why? Because at that particular time it is calling this particular undefined. Okay, what if I call this afterwards? So it will save me it will give me 20. Okay, why? Because now this particular memory have assigned a particular value to this particular a. That is why we are getting 20. But we can say this, that the particular variable a is hoisted. Why? Because the memory is already created. As soon as we write var a, it is already created. Okay, any doubts in hoisting? You can ask me if you don't understand it. But see, no one is going to ask you, where show me how to write code in hoisting. Just remember the definition. That's it. A JavaScript behavior in which functions or a variable, which variable? Only var, not let a const, not let and const. They are they can be used before declaration, which means these are hoisted. Okay? As simple as that. So you can see the one difference between var and latent constant are latent constants are not hoisted and var is hoisted. Okay, as simple as that. Move on to the second very important questions that a lot of people are going to ask you in your interviews for sure. Hoisting. Remove this. Okay. What is closures? Okay. What I saying? A function with its lexical environment. What is this lexical environment? Okay, let's understand. A function, let me show you. Let name username Akshat. Now we are creating a function get name console.log, and we are getting the username here. Okay, what you will see, of course you are going to see the, oh sorry, I have not called the function. Of course you are going to see the user is not defined user name. Akshat is, you are of course going to see Akshat. Okay, this particular function with its lexical environment, which means with its lexical environment in this particular thing, what is its lexical environment? The lexical environment for this particular function is whatever the things outside this particular thing, okay, within the global scope. So whatever the variables that are having in its particular lexical environment of this particular function, this particular function can only access them. Okay, this is a very simple this is a very simple concept. Okay, so closures are this only. Closures are this only. A function with its lexical environment or the parent scope can access these variables. As simple as that. ठीक है भैया, वेरी वेरी गुड यार, ये तो मतलब बहुत सिंपल है, ये तो मतलब ये तो हमने फर्स्ट क्लास में देख लिया था कि भैया ऑफ कोर्स he can access this particular variable. Now what if I will create a function again, get something, okay, and I will put this in this, okay, and I will put this, and I will create a username here also. um, yeah, okay. Let's tell me what output is it is going to give us, whether it is going to give us Akshat or whether it is going to give us Jen. Tell me, any guesses? Any guesses? Let me show you the code again, and you can just guess. Take a guess, yeah. What thing it is giving me? Whether it will give me Akshat or whether it will give me Jen.
Akshat.
ठीक
Akshat.
है. Mudit, what about you? You can write in chat. ठीक है, Jen करा मैं. ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है. Let's see what it will give me. It is giving me. Let me refresh this, so you can like sure. It is giving me Akshat. ठीक है. Let's understand why it is not giving me Jen. I said कि भैया a function with its lexical environment or the parent scope. For this particular function, the get name, what is the lexical environment for this particular thing? We are talking about the variables only, not the functions. For this particular function, get name, its lexical environment is this. Whatever the things written in this particular function, its lexical environment is this. Okay, that is why it will use username, whatever the username is, this particular function has in its lexical environment. So for this particular function, it will see कि भैया what is my in my lexical environment. It will see कि भैया username is in my lexical environment, so I will print the lexical environment. Now let's see. Let's remove this. Let's comment it out. Okay, what now? Let's see what it will give me. Let's see what it will give me. Now it is giving a gen. Hey, why it is giving me a gen? You said कि भैया this particular function can access only its lexical environment, but here there is nothing known as the particular username, a variable in its lexical environment. What I said, lexical environment or the parent scope, it will find till where he can find the variables or the thing. Okay, that is why it will see this particular function will go in its lexical environment. He will see कि यार here I am not getting anything. Then he will do कि भैया get something function. Are you having something in your lexical environment which I can use? He will, this particular function will say कि भैया हाँ you can, I am having a username in my lexical environment that you can use. That is why it is showing you a Jan. What if, but before this it is showing you a Akshat only. Why? Because it do not have to go it do not have to ask this particular thing. Okay, this particular function कि भैया can you give me something? Because why? Because it is getting this particular requirement within its lexical environment only. Understood? Just give me a yes, or if you have any doubts you can ask. ठीक है. This is a very simple concept. This is what we known as the closures, and a very very important concept for the interview. Just uh, this is what all can I say. Asynchronous JavaScript, hoisting, array methods, string methods that we all learned, ki map and all those things, and these like the closures are the very very important for the JavaScript interview. Bhaiya, why they are used? Tell me this na ki why they are used. Why will this is a simple phenomena. Okay, this is a simple like JavaScript code. Why we are using this? This is we can use closures like in real world, so that if we do not want something to give us the output, so like we can, what we can do is we can like there are some variables that we do not want world to see. There are some private variables, okay, as we define in object oops, private variables that not like no one can use them, okay, but we want the output from that particular function, whomsoever is using that. In the same way, what we can do is we can just private this particular function, and we can just give this particular function to the world. If we use this particular function, we don't want to show you the logic, what is the particular logic you are using. We just want to return you the output, so we can use the output here. Okay, as simple as that. That is why we are using the closures. uh, Other than this, you are not going to use closures. You are not going to use closures in your life, believe me this. Something is not defined. Okay. Okay. You're not going to use closures other than this, or maybe if you're using, yeah, like you will not remember कि भैया अच्छा something I have learned कि what are closures, and because this is a very theoretical concept kind of thing कि they have made something by a function with its lexical environment. But just remember this: a function with its lexical environment is known as the closure. Okay, this particular thing will first find search will first scan its lexical environment. If it is not getting the particular thing, then it will go its particular function, parent function. It will ask कि भैया can you give me something from your lexical environment. This particular function will say कि भैया हाँ, I can give you this particular thing, and then you can use this particular thing. Okay, this is how it actually works. So I think we are done. Yeah, we are done here, and we have completed the JavaScript, like the programming part of the JavaScript. Tomorrow we are going to learn how we are going to manipulate our actual web page, or how we are going to bring interactivity. The first thing when I told you in the class when we were learning about the HTML, CSS, JavaScript is that JavaScript was built to add interactivity. So how we are going to do that? So we are going to do that with the help of some method that we are going to use. But this is what we have learned till now in those 2 days, on before 3 days and this 2 days is the what is the programming language, is the programming language JavaScript. कि भाई how you can use JavaScript to solve all your questions. But for tomorrow, what we are going to use is the how we can manipulate our particular JavaScript. ठीक है? So any doubts you can ask, or you can leave. Yeah. If you have any doubts, you can ask. ठीक है? Yeah. You can leave now.